Hello and welcome to Ant RC. It's Terry here, and this is the second time I've done this video. Some people may have realised that this PG4 first build, stage build video was up on the channel and then it disappeared. Now, we've had an issue where I've had a few videos deleted, which is really annoying. Some of the WPL ones I've done, which have been really good. Usually I'd upload them, but what I tend to do is when my hard drive's full, I then copy all the original video files to an external hard drive. I started doing that and then editing something else, copied, finished, deleted all the original files, and for whatever reason, like a complete plonker, there's some that I didn't copy over, and for whatever reason, and this was one of them. So very vexing, I've got to reshoot it, hence why we're here. Now, I'll go through what I've called this fail, elephant in the room. The chassis is now the right way up. Those that watched the original video may have noted, and I thought so as well, that it looked odd that this chassis, when in the first video, the first part of the build was facing the wrong way. It's upside down. Now, why did that happen? Well, I'd said on the comments that I kept looking at the manual 3 or 4 times and it looked right. And I didn't mean this bit looked the right way up, but this chassis comes in 2 sections. So you have the front section here, which you put the shock towers on. The rear actually hasn't got shock towers, it's leaf springs. So this is the front of the truck. And then you've got the rear here. Now, it's all kept together by as you can see in this bit here, so the split is there and there, basically, where my fingers are. And there is a piece of metal in between the two, which has got holes in it. So, I pulled it out of the bag. The chassis all came in one bag. Everything went together, fine. But this metal part here, on the proper one, and you look in the manual, there's kind of 2 of the holes are raised at the rear and lower at the front. I can't remember which way round it is. Anyway, they weren't raised on the one I had in the bag. They didn't line up all that well, but the screws and bolts went in, but they would only go in one way because these bolts are slightly higher. So I put it in the only way it would go. And that meant that this part, the rear, was facing the wrong way. It was upside down. So I kept checking it and thinking, what? So it was the only way it would go together. But of course, the rear end of it was upside down. So I was getting extraordinarily confused looking at the manual and again thinking, this doesn't look right. But so I then didn't know what was wrong. So anyway, after kind of calming down a little bit, I went through the box and different bags, and in the screws and bolts bag, which isn't listed on the front, in the front of the manual you get parts and what's in where. There was another 2 sets of this bit here, this kind of joining metal bit, which is probably about this long, and I pulled that out, looked at it, and it's different from the one that was in the chassis bag. So I've put that on and it's now the right way around. Everything matches up. So I don't know why that's happened. Now, I've had a few issues with this. I think I've got the Friday afternoon version. I will go through what I mean. So, apart from that, it's gone together fine. The screws are okay. I'm really impressed with it. Talk about some positives. The chassis is awesome. It's really long. I mean, it gives you an example of just how kind of long this truck is. I can't get it in the shot. And the beautiful bash plate underneath that secures the motor and gearbox in, that's really, really, really cool. So that's awesome. But I'm afraid, again, back to the negatives, I didn't notice. I thought something was a little bit strange about this motor and gearbox, because this gearbox is the same as I've got in the MC6 and the Mammoth. And it's a 2-speed gearbox, and you'll note here, you've got the shaft sticks out here, and what you do is you put the necessary attachments of the nut, the screw, the bolt, and the nut through here, attach it to a servo, and it moves back and forwards and it changes gear. Now, I'll put the screenshot up of the unboxing video looking at this gearbox. This was bolted on that side. So it was the wrong way round. And it wasn't until I put all the gearbox in, and I thought, hang on a minute, I looked at the manual, and the servo sits here. So I thought, well, so anyway, that was obviously wrong. So someone had obviously had, when they built the gearbox, they'd put that shaft in the wrong way round. So I'll go to the manual now, so we can have a little look what the other issue is within the gearbox, and why I think I've got the Friday afternoon jobby. One thing I will say, if you're going to build this, is one, check all the bags. If the chassis is upside down, you screw it on, and it looks wrong, check in the box, because there might be another one of these in the bag. I don't know whether they realise they put the wrong one in and already sealed the chassis up and decided to put this in the kind of nuts and bolts bag. Don't know what the reason is, but be careful of that if you're building this, because yeah, that's not great. So I thought the manual was wrong, and it appeared on my one, looking at it, that it didn't. My manual, it didn't seem that it showed the difference of the different height in bolts. But yeah, it's something, I guess, that's, you know, if you put it on, you use the part you think, and that's how it goes on. But then the chassis is upside down, messes with your head. Anyway, if you're going to build this, another thing to be mindful of, it says in the manual to bolt the motor and the gearbox to this base plate. You then put the base plate onto the chassis with these supports. To get these bolts through, you need to put nuts on the back of them, which you can see in here. That is a nightmare, trying to get your fingers in there, especially if you've got sausage fingers like me, to try and get the bolts to kind of locate the nuts, on the bolts, to get them to locate and tighten up, because obviously you've not got a lot of space. Well, my way around that was to unbolt the motor from the bash plate, not attach it, because you can undo this support here and it will just slide out nicely. You then got free access without the gearbox and motor in the way to put those nuts on. It's much easier. So yeah, ignore the manual for that bit is my advice, because it takes a lot longer if the motor's in place. So yeah, don't go down that road. So let's have a quick look at the manual. Okay, so this is inside the manual of the gearbox, and this is where the gear change rod locates. So you can't see it in this shot here, but if I go down where it's further on, you can see here that this is the kind of gear change shaft, and it has a thread on it here that sticks out the back of the gearbox. Now what happened with my kit is this rod, this shaft, had been installed the wrong way round, so the thread was sticking out this way. So in theory, you just open the gearbox, so that it'd be nice and easy. Take this off, and it's just like a claw, if you like a U-shaped collar, not a collar, but it just fits in. And you thought, right, I take it out, unscrew this, spin it around, put it through the hole, screw it back on. Job's a good one. But when I took this side of the gearbox off at the front, all the other gears in here are kind of machined, so everything is built onto the actual shaft, so the gears themselves don't come off. But when I open the gearbox, it tends to fall out a little bit, because it's only held in, the shafts are only held in by putting the gearbox together. All these cogs on this shaft here, everything fell off, and I thought, what? I've never had that before, because I've had the gearbox on the Mammoth apart and on the MC6, and I've never experienced that. Now the issue is that this is the shaft we're talking about here, and you can see it's got little C-clips there, and what those C-clips do is it's got ones either side. They stop these gears from coming off the end of the shaft. The C-clips don't allow them to move back and forth. Well, my kit, this gearbox, hasn't got C-clips. So it's not the fact the C-clips just aren't included, it's this shaft here hasn't got any of those indents that you see there and there. So you can't physically put C-clips on, even if you had them. And that was extraordinarily confusing. Now the only thing to stop the gears coming off or moving inside the gearbox when it's all fit together is there's kind of like brass washers, kind of thick washers at the end of each side of the shaft so that when you put the gearbox back on and you put the plate on, the kind of thicker brass washers, if you like, they stop everything moving back and forth, and the gears coming out of place. So the gearbox that I've got is completely different to this manual, and that was extraordinarily puzzling. So getting that together is a real mission, because normally all this doesn't fall apart once it's in. But of course, without any C-clips in it, all there is just washers either end, and they can move. And it is a bit fiddly to get this gearbox together anyway, but it's made it 10 times harder. So I put the gearbox back together. I thought, I hadn't run it up at that point, so I was then concerned. So I attached it to the ESC and my radio gear and spun it up, and then I pulled the gear change shaft back and forward, and it seems to engage. It seems to work fine. So I think it must be an older gearbox. What I've done is I've spoken to Simon at Green's Models, and he had a PG4A, and he had the same thing. When he opened the gearbox, he was puzzled and not seen it before. So it's obviously must be an older gearbox for them, and they've put it in their manual, or put that page in the manual from, I don't know what's happened. Needless to say, I am proceeding from now on with extreme caution. I have also encountered, you can see just at the bottom of the shot here, these are supposed to be scale, these bolts here. So you get, a corresponding bag, and you open the bag and you pick which bolt, and it's, it's normally great. You put the bolt next to the scale drawing. You think, yeah, I've got the right one. I've had a couple of instances where the bolt it's given me that it said doesn't match up with this, and I've measured the bolt with my measuring tool I've got. Luckily I've got one, and the bolt's the right size. It's just this printing on the picture is wrong. Not every single so now I'm checking every single bolt. I'm not going by this. I'm measuring everything just to make sure. So it's not been the best of starts, sadly. I've had issues, but I don't know. I think I've got the Friday afternoon rig, especially the fact that this was the wrong way around. I also had an issue that it's not got any. You'll see that one side of the solder, I had to reconnect this because this wasn't connected. It come in the bag. You get everything assembled and it come in the bag, and this was flopping around. So I need to put some heat shrink over it. So what with this section here, there being 2 sets of them, to be fair, it's partly my fault. I haven't gone through the whole manual to see if I'm assuming the other ones I've got go somewhere else, and they've just put the wrong one in the wrong bag. I should have checked. My fault. When it went together but it didn't look right, I should have gone back and seen to have a look if there was any others in there, but I used the one that was in the bag. But hey ho, onwards and upwards. We're now back on track, and the next stage in the build is going to be to put the bumpers on for the front, the real cool chrome bumpers, and then I believe it's the leaf springs and then the axles. So when I've gone through that stage, I'll do another update video. Hope this has proved useful, and sorry about the videos disappearing. I nearly didn't record this because I just couldn't be bothered, but that's not the spirit. So let's continue onwards and upwards. So hope you all stay safe. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and catch up soon. Bye for now.